Good morning, everyone. Welcome to FSI Strategies, Getting the Most Out of Your IT Services webinar. Thank you all for joining us this morning. My name is Ryan Yeagle. I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at FSI. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us, and we hope that you find this webinar useful. Before we get started, let me just jump into a few housekeeping items. We will be recording today's webinar, and this will be sent out just following the completion of the session. Should you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to send them through the Q&A feature at the top of the Teams platform. I'll be in there to address them, or we'll address them at the end of the presentation. If you'd like to discuss any of today's topics in further depth, please reach out to us and we'll be happy to set up a time to discuss one-on-one. FSI Strategies has been helping companies leverage technology to succeed and grow for over 20 years. We strategically engage with our clients' teams to modernize their environments through planning and design, implementation, training and adoption, change management, IT support, and cloud licensing. I'd like to take a moment to introduce today's presenter, Chris Wolin. Chris has over a decade of involvement working in managed services and helping clients successfully leverage technology to improve their IT. Under his purview, the client experience team here at FSI manages our clients' needs with a focus on growing strategic partnership with our clients. Thanks so much, Chris, for joining us today.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate the intro, and thanks again to everyone joining here today. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about how to choose a new MSP. So does a one-size-fits-all approach work, or are there alternatives? We're going to talk about the business benefits of working with MSP, and specifically a strategic one. We'll dive into the evaluation criteria as well for how to go about selecting a new MSP. And then we'll also talk about some tips for building a successful partnership after you have actually chosen one. And then on the back end, we will talk about, we'll open the door for questions and answer sessions. Okay, again, is there a one-size-fits-all approach? What types of providers are there? There's over 150,000 MSP companies globally. So again, important to be educated about the different types of providers, pricing models, make sure it aligns with your business needs. So what types of MSPs are there out there? We have pure play MSPs. These may focus on just monitoring network or application services. Maybe it's just alerting and reporting. We have staffing legacy MSPs. They generally target like the mid-level to Fortune 500 size companies. Wide range of services, including that monitoring, reporting, maybe software installs, upgrades, those kinds of things. And then high-level MSPs, some of the most common. These are both small providers, large providers, again, a wide range of services, which will enable you to outsource basically all of your IT processes if that's what you're looking for. Again, wide range of services. You might hear terms like MSSP these days, which are security operations focused. You may also hear the term XSP these days, which is IT ops and security ops. Also want to point out the difference between like a commodity-based provider and one that's more service-based. So think of a commodity-based like Geek Squad, where you go to them for just one kind of break fix issue, they solve the problem, and it's more of a customer relationship versus a client relationship where you're talking about long-term guidance, advisory services, things like that. Important to look at pricing models. There's, again, a plethora. Just monitoring, reporting only that we talked about. You can be charged per user, per device, or per user plus device. Tiered approaches like good, better, best, a la carte, where you can just pick one off a menu, or just choose everything, buffet style, all you can eat. There's different agreement types as well. So if you are a mid-level to enterprise size corporation or organization where you have a lot of IT staff, you can choose an MSP that's going to supplement that in the right ways, whether it's offloading frontline user support, while you focus on infrastructure and applications or line of business apps, or vice versa. So there really is no right or wrong answer. It's really about determining what is right for you and your staff. Okay, what are some of the benefits of working with a more strategic partner? Um, Big eye-opening stat here: 83% of orgs have trouble finding staff with the right skills and experience in technology. So, what do you get with a strategic provider? Increase expertise and experience and optimize technology stack. So, make sure that aligns with the roadmap of your org. You'll avoid all kinds of compatibility and integration issues working with that type of provider. Um, Increased efficiency across the board, whether that's in service delivery, service quality, cost reduction, and predictability. So, let's say you're moving from on-prem infrastructure to cloud infrastructure. You're trading that capital expenditure for the operational expenditure, which again is more predictable month on month. So you can predict those costs in the future and get better return on your investment. Some other benefits include being able to work with them on things like disaster recovery, business continuity plans, so all that risk management type of stuff. And last but not least, enhanced security, which bottom of this list, but top of everyone's mind. And it's also common to work with maybe multiple providers, one that is a more of a IT ops focused MSP, and one that's specifically security like an MSSP. All right, moving along. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about types of providers and the strategic benefits, how do you start the evaluation process? So we'll talk a little bit about the RFP process, service delivery model, scalability of your provider, what they're doing to for learning and certifications to keep up with tech, and then some more strategic planning focused items, and then we'll wrap up with culture fit. Okay, so the RFP process. Make sure you have executive or stakeholder buy-in. It's really, really important that the very top levels of your organization are involved in these decisions. So determining, who leads the partner management side of things, or if you have internal IT staff management, it's important to determine the proper stakeholders there. Also, try to avoid quote unquote blind RFP. It's typically indicative of an organization that may have high turnover with MSPs. So you want to put the time and effort into that practice, and maybe have a boilerplate version of your RFP that you can send out and also customize if need be for the certain types of providers. So customizing the questions that you ask there, focused on what you're looking for. Make sure you evaluate the metrics that the provider is using, whether that's SLAs for response time, resolution time, call center metrics, those types of things, right? And I highly recommend going out and meeting in person with your prospects, especially these days, post-pandemic, where people are starting to get back into the swing of things in person. So it goes a long way to actually see even just the office where your MSP works and the people there and how they interact. Okay, service delivery model. Super important that there's stability there. You want clear process and procedures so that you receive that quality and responsive support that you want. Definitely encourage to, again, make sure those SLAs, response times are transparent. You've been given an escalation path, that may even go up to the C-level of the company if need be. And on that note, look for a provider that has not just the normal communication channels of phone and email, but some alternatives. Like here at FSI, we actually have a desktop add-in called the Get Help app that we have created in-house, and it shows up in your Office suite and all your Office apps in the web browser. So it allows you to communicate on your own service requests through the app and right in the flow of your work. So it keeps people productive. So things like that are a little bit out of the box. You may not see with all providers. Ask about the voicemail policy, or in our case, lack thereof. We have a quote unquote no voicemail policy, meaning all calls that come in are answered by someone, even if it's the CEO himself. Scalability. Okay, 83% of small businesses believe that technology has helped them grow in challenging conditions. I would have to agree with that. Maybe it's a larger percentage. But yeah, modern work is rapidly evolving, so you don't want to hold back your organization from growing. Your company may grow, the MSP is growing at the same time, so you want to make sure that scalability goes both ways there, because things are changing rapidly. We all know that. So again, choose an MSP that has a comprehensive list of services that are adaptable for not just what you're doing today, but also a year, 2 years, 5 years from now as well. Okay, this is a big one. 91% of IT professionals said that certs increase confidence in their own abilities. We've all been on the phone with, a tech, and you ask them a question and they mute, and they're going off to Google it. So less Googling, the better. The more you know up front, the quicker you are able to resolve issues. Service efficiency is much better. So we all know that learning influences confidence, but you want your provider to show proof and validation that they have invested in their staff. So ask them these questions. What kind of opportunities do they provide for their staff? FSI, we actually have a 100% certification policy, meaning everyone in the company, no matter what your role is, has to have some type of certification. And we do have some criteria for that for, certs per year. Look for third-party partnerships and certifications. That is, again, validation that they have actually achieved these certs and earned them properly. So things like Microsoft Solutions Partner, which FSI has, Tier 1 cloud solutions provider, these types of things are, again, validation that we have the properly trained staff, certified staff. And again, ask these questions, and I should be able to provide some details on these. Okay, back to some more strategic planning items. So again, you want an MSP that does more than just fix those one-off problems like the commodities-based ones, or more customer versus client-based. Want to make sure you have some forward thinking there, some foresight. So an effective MSP is going to help you stay ahead in that landscape and kind of guide you through that technology. 56% of orgs actually look towards managed services providers like FSI to gain access to those newer technologies. So again, a little bit more shameless self-promotion, but FSI is part of a technology adoption program with Microsoft where we're actually testing things out well ahead of time before it's in production. So look for, again, providers that have access to these newer technologies and that can help guide you forward, right? So ask those questions, make sure they're focusing on more than just that core infrastructure, but thinking critically about those other things. Okay, last but not least here, culture fit. 66% of customers have stopped buying from a company whose values didn't align to theirs. There's, proof of this in the news and social media every day. But that technology expertise is obviously essential, but the soft skills and the culture is, something that's going to help you jive in the long term. So you want to inquire about those kind of cultural pillars or values. FSI has several. Innovation, right? Making sure they're embracing new technology. Again, learning we talked about, being connected to customers, right? That we listen to the needs and expectations of our clients. So again, as you grow, as the provider grows, want to make sure that culture fit, vibes, right? Right. Okay, we've covered the evaluation criteria, and let's say you have chosen a new provider. What now? How do you thrive, right? So especially early on, once you've been onboarded, you've gone live with your new provider or providers, making sure that communication is transparent and open and honest, especially over the first 3 to 6 months. That's where a lot of the the growing pains and getting to know each other happens. So communication again is very, very important. Make sure your MSP is actually surveying you and your staff, whether that's on service requests, projects, just the overall client experience. These are indicators that they are listening and communicating. Take advantage of any training opportunities. Again, the service-based and not commodity-based providers will have these things available, whether that's actual in-person training or portals you can access with kind of out of the box training or things you can customize. Things like FSI does with our Microsoft Teams Day, which we had at the local Microsoft Technology Center here in Virginia. So things like webinars like this, these are signs that a provider is doing the things to help your staff understand technology, and even things that aren't necessarily technology related as well, whether it's education on how to interact with the service as well. The executive representation, the stakeholders that were there for the RFP process and the evaluation process should also be there for the long term as well. So you want to make sure that that representation does not end. Once you've chosen a provider, it's important to make sure that you've identified those who are accountable for that partner relationship moving forward, and that in turn will help you to leverage that strategic value of your provider, create that culture of collaboration, right? So a cohesive culture comes up again. Definitely want to stay ahead of the curve there. Again, continual learning, all this stuff is really, really important. That is going to wrap up, and I think we'll pass it back over to Ryan here for some Q&A. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Chris. That was really useful. All right, let me check here and see what questions I have. And if anybody thinks of anything while we're chatting here, you can pop them into the Q&A section, and I will take a look. So I have one here. It says, do you have an example of improvements to efficiencies that managed services can provide? So can you go a little bit deeper into the efficiencies that you've seen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So I'll talk about streamlined process and procedure. So again, once you've evaluated your MSP and chosen one, making sure that they have some basic process and procedure that they can apply to your environment. This could be something as simple as your user onboarding and offboarding procedures. That and workstation setups, like those three things are kind of the core of where a lot of the daily activity is for your IT operations in most cases. So you want to make sure that those are locked down. So that's an example where, whether it's technical or non-technical, we can help folks walk through those if they don't have existing ones, or if the ones they have don't work. Data governance and compliance as well. Cost savings. These are all, again, efficiencies that you'll get working with a provider where you don't have to hire that staff, spend all the money on overhead, right? They're doing all that for you at a predictable cost. So really a lot of efficiencies across the board. Good question.
Great. Yeah, I have one more here. So coming from an enterprise company, is there any benefit to not just using our own IT? It's a great one.
Sure. Yeah. Going back to one of the earlier slides, actually, where I mentioned the co-managed or targeted types of agreements. So these are great for supplementing your existing IT staff. So a common example I've seen in the industry is an organization that really wants to focus again on like infrastructure, their core line of business applications, more strategy, while they offload the day-to-day frontline end user support to a provider who can handle that for them. Again, this is making sure that your team is focused on the things that are going to benefit you more in the long term. I've also seen vice versa, right? Where you may have an IT team who's maybe more junior, needs escalation help, right? If you find your team is great at the day-to-day, but when the stuff hits the fan, it's not so great. So you want a provider you can lean on for escalating those or more complex technical issues. And again, if you're If your team is more day-to-day focused and you want some advisory and strategy and consulting from a trusted provider, you can go to them for that. So there's a lot of reasons for supplementing your own IT in those ways and making it a more kind of flexible approach to your IT and SecOps. Yeah, another great question. Thank you.
Yeah, and so those are the two questions that I've got. We'll give it another minute. If anybody has any questions, up at the top, there's a Q&A button. You can just pop it in there. If not, we are going to give you some time back. And as I said in the beginning, this session will be recorded, or was recorded, and we'll be sure to send that out to you just following. And if you have any questions or you'd like to talk to Chris or myself directly, about any of the topics we covered today or anything else, our contact information is in the chat, but also here on the slide. And be sure to follow us on LinkedIn. We do post a few times a week some tips and tricks from a technical perspective. We also keep up on the latest trends and in modern work. So keep an eye on that as well. And thank you again for your time. And we hope to see you next time. We're having another webinar next month. And we hope to see you there.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Great.
Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time. Take care.